They're the two signings that are coming. Manager has them to work with, and that's progression from previous transfer windows, if you ask me.
Manchester United are acting like a club of old, and the football world is reacting. From Norway to Scotland, Joshua Zirkzee to Lenny Euro, we're chatting about the football, the signings, the media, and more. It's your latest episode of the Theatre of Red. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Whatever part of the world that you call home, you have my thanks for tuning in today. As always, it has been quite a busy week for Manchester United, with defeat in Norway, multiple transfers, and preparation ahead of tomorrow's trip to Scotland to face Rangers. Joining me today to dissect this wonderful football team are two names that are known very well across the United community. First up, we have the editor-in-chief of the excellent Stretty News, Mr. Dale O'Donnell. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm delighted to be joined on a Theatre Red podcast, Shaun. Finally.
Well, you are very welcome, sir. It's like we've gone full circle. Not forgetting the other body in the room. He is a man, he is a myth, he's a legend, and he's a general scoundrel. One half of the excellent StrettyCast, Mr. Brian Murphy. How is everything in West Limerick, sir?
Life is great, Shaun, and it's a pleasure to be asked on to Theatre of Red. I'm very happy to be here, very happy to be joining you again for a podcast.
Likewise, my man, likewise. Now that we have those pleasantries out of the way, gentlemen, let us begin with the season-ending defeat against Rosenborg in Norway. A 1-0 defeat for 19 academy players, most of whom will never feature for the first team, and 6 first-team players with 1, maybe 2 starters, all coming back from vacation, and they have about 3, 4, or 5 days of training. Brian, in the fallout of what was the definition of a meaningless fixture to just entice with the Scandinavian audience and give them an opportunity to see some form of Manchester United without having to shell out hundreds and thousands to get planes, trains and hotels, just how poor was the response in the media to this result?
The stereotypical meltdown that United are playing a friendly, and as you've led in with, it's a meaningless friendly. It's pre-season, first game, a squad of kids against a team that I think have played maybe 14 or 15 games in their own league. They've already started their division, started their league before us, so they're well set up and they're well match fit and they're nicely cohesive. We've put a team of literally of children out there, academy prospects or fringe academy players. I don't know what people expected, but instantly, the doomsday merchants appeared who feed off the negativity and any chance they can to lambaste and hammer Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. They seize with both hands. One particular article alluded to the fact that Erik ten Hag was kept on as manager, and being the first game after he secured his position for the future, we were expecting a breathtaking display of defiance, and they were going to show the world that, yeah, Ten Hag means business, and we didn't get that, so Ten Hag would probably be sacked, and it was a mistake to keep him. So it was the usual laughable nonsense, and to be fair, a lot of the fan base, the online fan base, to be fair, they all started giving out and whinging that we got beat by a team that are below us hypothetically, and we didn't play well, and it's all over, and the season's a write-off. What are we going to do now? The season ahead is going to be a disaster. Nobody remembers Louis van Gaal's pre-season, where we went off on a little unbeaten run, and the absolute turgid affair we endured afterwards. So if we have to have a couple of scrappy friendlies, which are literally a chance for overseas Reds to get a look at the United team and just to go to a local game and watch their favourite club without flying around the world to do it, if we lose a couple of these games, no problem whatsoever. As we progress, I suppose, as we move closer to the season, you'd be expecting to see a little bit more of what the first team might have to offer. But the first game against a side who's already set up and midway through their season, no problem, no expectations, no worries. Calm down, don't be losing the plot. Just appreciate the fact that we put out a team of kids and it's game number 1. Don't go too psychotic about it.
You're getting very sensible in your old age, Brian. Dale, realistically speaking, we shouldn't be seeing Manchester United going out and hammering teams 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-0 because there's really no purpose to it. I've always been of the opinion, particularly when I see Bayern Munich playing their pre-season friendlies and they return some scorelines that they could be 25, 26-0. It's the most nonsensical, unreasonable preseason purpose that you're going to get. You shouldn't have a situation where you're setting your players out in games against inferior opposition. You should be setting them out against individuals where they're going to be tested, where they're going to get a runaround and ultimately going to get some sort of a benefit. And surely, on top of trying to engage with the very, very large Scandinavian audience that supports Manchester United, there was purpose in setting them off against a side that are halfway through their season and are match fit.
There's definitely purpose. And as well, this is the initial pre-season friendly. So the players have had a week of training. People have to throw that into account. They're only there a week, and it's a lot of young players with 5 senior players. They don't play together regularly. And it's different. It's not going to all match and gel in the first game against a side, like you say, are midway through their campaign. I think, but these games are just that. It's about, getting 45 minutes into some of these players' legs and adding to that bank as the preseason goes on. But as the tour develops and we hit the United States and we play some bigger opposition, that's where you're going to get that competitive edge. You're playing against top players. You're, comparing their fitness to ours. That's what I'd be looking at, rather than, are we putting 3 past them? Are we conceding silly goals? Well, conceding silly goals would be a concern, but I don't care too much about results. What I want is, looking at how last season went, is that we can finish pre-season with a fully fit squad, and a squad that we feel that looks prepared for the competitive season. I know we have the Community Shield as well, another pre-season, you could say, friendly thrown into the mix. But I just want us to prepare for the competitive season. Don't care too much if we win every game or if we lose every game. Keeping everyone fit and everyone, working towards what we want when the season kicks off. That's the aim.
And it's about having a proficient squad, isn't it? A squad that's going to be able to challenge across all multiple fronts. You obviously briefly mentioned a Community Shield in another pre-season friendly. I think we're probably the only football club in the Premier League that considers it that, because everybody else seems to consider it a trophy. But we have that to look forward to, and we have a multitude of individuals coming back from their vacation. Obviously, you're going to see the boys that were involved in the Euros and in Copa America coming back. So as we get on to those more glamour fixtures, if you will, over in the States, there's going to be a very proficient squad there that's going to include some new signings. And at the time that we are recording, it is important to mention this. We've not sealed absolute confirmation, but all such about Lille centre-back Lenny Yoro, who underwent the first part of his medical at Manchester United on Wednesday, ahead of signing a 5-year contract with the option for an additional year. The boy is 18 years of age, for those of you who've been living under a rock. He is highly touted as the greatest generational talent in his position. Obviously, he had an intention of moving to Spain, fulfilling his childhood ambition of replicating the likes of the legendary Raphael Varane in going from France to Spain and achieving the success that he had domestically and on the continent. However, down to Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos's highly publicised pursuit, their desire to upsell this Manchester project, we've now turned the head of this 18-year-old individual, and it looks like an agreement between the clubs has been struck for in around £52 million. I know that there's a couple of add-ons that could see it go up ever so slightly, but Manchester United, for all intensive purposes, for the first time in my lifetime, have beaten Real Madrid in signing a continental name. And for once, we are not taking a footballer from them that they have had their worth with, they've washed their hands with. Just how significant is Lenny Yoro to Manchester United?
Well, if you go back to, I suppose, last week, with Xerxes coming in, very swift into the market, business done, clever business, clever transfer fee, an extra 2.5 million to spread the cost over a couple of years, playing ball at PSR. Then you see the Lenny Yoro story break, and it went from 0 to 100 in the same day. Rumours that he was interested in coming. The story kind of started taking legs that possibly leaning towards United. Next thing he's coming, Ornstein dropped a bombshell today, which blew up the internet, that he's going for a medical at United. And it went from medical at United to Fabrizio's here we go in a matter of a couple of hours. It shows serious intent by Ineos. It shows a serious change of direction in the transfer market, something we've all been looking for. Not buying these 30 plus year old players for relatively big fees, trying to get a year or two out of them and then being stuck with them. It's after giving me kind of renewed hope that maybe things are about to change dramatically at the club to a level where we're going to start making very sensible transfers. The first two we've made on paper, I can't say that I can't say I'm an absolute encyclopedia on Euro or Xerxes, but looking at their transfers on paper, clever fees, clever transfer business, done swiftly, right age profile, and building a squad that can gel together over the next while and really become a strong side if it works out. So Linney Euro, though, to be signing a player who was touted as being wanted by Madrid, we've changed the landscape. We signed the player they wanted before they got him instead of signing him off him when he's been there for a couple of years and he's coming to the end of it and they want to shift him on. It's massive. It's a massive. They're labeling it a statement signing, and it's exactly what it is. It's a statement signing. It's United saying, "This is it. We were going to go for Branthwaite. Everton were dicking about with their prices. We went away and got this clever business done. Now Everton are baffled. I think they actually came out and said they were surprised at United at their transfer business for Euro, and they wouldn't sign Branthwaite. But why would we possibly enter a fight with you for a player with minimal experience?" Similar to Euro, I suppose his senior side hasn't been massive, but similar kind of, I suppose, talent being touted that they could become this kind of player. We just went off to a new target and got him done. And it's the start of United showing clubs, especially in England, if you want to try and mess about, we'd just go somewhere else and buy someone else. So, and which is the biggest thing we need to change, this United tax and this thing where we're a soft touch and you can add on an extra 20 million. Maybe we're about to start proving people wrong and they can't do that. So it's a massive change of direction and a massive change of attitude by the club. I'm absolutely delighted with it.
Couldn't agree more with everything you've said. The thing that I kept moving back to when I was looking through this over the last couple of days is the perennial disappointment that we had with the likes of Woodward and co. Something that three of us have discussed previously on StrettyCast many times about, do Manchester United have a really strong scouting network, or are they just inept in that? And what has obviously come to fruition over the last few years is that there is a very strong scouting network there. There's many opportunities presented for many footballers, and the football club just passed up on them. What we ended up falling foul to so many times was that the club would set their sights on one player. They were told at the start of the window, the price is 70 million. And then they would enter in, we'll give you 10, we'll give you 20, and eventually they'd pay 70. Like you said, Brian, United went to Everton and said, look, Jared Branthwaite is a player that we want. You're a little bit too far ahead of us. Here's one, here's two. We're going to move on to another target. And it was the most reassuring thing that I have seen, that they're not going to play ball with anybody, particularly for want and will of what Everton have done prior to Alex Ferguson coming to the football club. They're not a club that can really be demanding £70 million for a player with potential talent and very limited access to him. When you're speaking about Lenny Dale, it's a footballer you and I have discussed many times. And one of the things that I think really stood out to me is that the teenager warmed to the idea of moving to England based on the project that was sold to him. It stands firm to everything that we've spoken about for the last 6 months regarding what are we going to see with Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Well, from an establishment of a best-in-class hierarchy in the backroom team to an obvious project that is being sold to him, being sold to Xerxes, being sold to Matthias de Ligt, who we'll touch on as well. Just how reassuring is this to you as a lifelong fan?
Massively, because I think United are doing something that we've all expected the club to be capable of doing for years in the market. This is the kind of player or young player, the hottest prospects. We should be bringing them in. Of course, you'd expect that there'll be a few that Real Madrid and Barcelona might get before us, but we never seem to be really signing those players, and it's been some time since that was the case. So this is, it's really promising. It's what we've all been kind of craving as fans, to see the most promising young players at Manchester United. But look, it's still an 18-year-old who I'm not going to pretend and say I know a lot about in terms of his profile as a player. I've read all the analysis and I've spoken to people and watched clips, but still not enough. I need to see him in a United shirt to truly judge this kid. But he is a kid. And I think what we're getting is a player that started games for Lille at the age of 17, and in that time, in the case of a year, attracted the interest from the biggest football clubs in the world. That is an incredible growth in the case of around 12 months. And that's what excites me, to be honest. And I know it's a bit silly because you're getting excited about a young player you haven't watched properly. Well, if Real Madrid are interested in this kid, well, then so should Manchester United if we're both looking for a centre back, because it's a department we need to strengthen. What I class it back to is a few years ago, Manchester United were looking for a young kid, French kid, Raphael Varane, and we didn't get him. He went to Real Madrid, and we ended up with Phil Jones. And don't no disrespect to Phil Jones. Phil Jones, good servant to United, unlucky with injuries and whatnot, but that's the difference. Raphael Varane went on to be a world-class player, and I think potentially we're talking about a player of the same ilk here who will replace Varane, not only at United, but potentially France.
And it's not just him, Dale. It's well publicised that Manchester United are actively seeking 2, possibly 3 central defensive signings. Brian mentioned profit and sustainability as well. So this is a huge, huge demand on the club. United are in prolonged conversations with Matthias de Ligt and Bayern Munich about a deal that I believe Bayern are holding out, or at least began wanting somewhere in the region of 40 to 42 million pounds for him. When you're seeing the figures of in around 56 million for Euro, 35 million for Xerxes, where are Manchester United going to be pulling 40, 50 million here when they're also looking to be able to bring in the likes of a midfielder like Manuel Ugarte? I know so much of it lies on outgoings, but given the surprise nature of how Euro has seemingly broke, as Brian said in the last couple of days, do you see it now as a sustainable point that the Ligt is also an option for the club?
I think De Ligt is an option for the club. I still think Brandtwaite's an option for the club. A lot of those extra additional signings will fall down to now sales, because what you've seen is Manchester United looked at the 2 areas they wanted to strengthen most this summer, which was they wanted an attacker, and they got Xerxes, and they got Euro in a centre back. They've got them in early. Well, Euro's not fully completed yet, but they've got them in early. They're the 2 signings that have come in. Manager has them to work with, and that's progression from previous transfer windows, if you ask me. The rest then that comes will be based on the likes of Casemiro possibly leaving if a Saudi club comes in for him, Wan-Bissaka, as well as that. There's other players, Lindelof, potentially Harry Maguire. The more of them they can shift out, United can do a lot more. And I don't rule out Brandtwaite, because United are still interested. What that's based on is everything moving, because nothing is stopping that deal, or nothing has stopped that deal other than Everton pricing out of a move. They're apparently baffled by the fee we paid for Yari Mino. Clouded in English tax, if you ask me, because Yari Mino is respected by some great clubs across Europe. Brandtwaite, respected in Eredivisie from his time there, but it's English clubs, Premier League clubs looking at him. Real Madrid, they're not looking at him.
Can we just clarify, have we signed 2 players today? Because Yari Mino is a player I haven't seen before. I've seen Lenny Euro, but I haven't seen
Yari Mina from fucking Everton. I had to do my first appearance on Theatre Red with a mispronunciation. Sorry, Shaun.
Oh, they'll never change. Never change. Brian, we're speaking about the necessity for profit and sustainability. We're talking about an influx of players coming in, and we're now the 19th of July, and we're looking at Joshua Xerxes already confirmed. As I said, at the time of recording, it's not confirmed. By the time people are listening, we may very well have confirmed a second signing. So much of it depends on the outgoings and being able to offset the books. Now, so far, we've seen Anthony Martial and Raphael Varane leave at the end of their contract. We've seen Donny van de Beek make a permanent transfer to Spain. And on Wednesday, we obviously got the here we go from Fabrizio Romano about Mason Greenwood. Now, a very contentious topic for Manchester United. The vast majority of the opinion that, yes, was the correct time for him to leave and not have a future back. Obviously, he spent the last season on loan at Getafe, having been suspended following the charges of attempted rape, controlling and coercive behaviour and assault. We see now a fee agreed with Ligue 1 side Marseille for 30 million euros, plus a staggering 50% sell-on clause, which is absolutely huge. It's further evidence of the real authority that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Dan Ashworth and this Ineos powerhouse are really implementing in the background. Are you pleased with the figures that United have received with Greenwood departing for France?
As I just said a minute ago, and in the Lenny Euro business and the Xerxes business, and as you just pretty much nailed on the head there, it's another evidence of a change of how we're acting, how we're behaving, and clever business. I know Greenwood, if he had kept on the trajectory he was going at United, he would have been worth a small fortune. He was super talented, very much hyped up in the media. After all that happened, you're looking to try to recoup a decent transfer fee to get 30 million straight up with a 50% sell on. I expect him, I really do expect him to do very well at Marseille, to be honest with you. So if he does, and he gets another move again for what you'd have to imagine would be bigger money, we get half of that back. We've recouped a lot of what we would have got for him had we sold him, had he stayed with us. So very clever business to give us a chance to get the maximum transfer value out of that guy. I was very impressed to see a 50% sell-on clause for that fella. That's fantastic business. It really, really is.
Another side of me is obviously very intrigued by how he's going to land there from a personal perspective, Dale. It's something that you covered yourself through Stretty News regarding the backlash that was received from the supporters clubs within Marseille. And it even went as far as the mayor implying this outcry of how the player and everything that he stood for went against the moral code and the ethos of what Marseille were trying to build and really, really stand forward in their own European project. With Roberto De Zerbi coming in there, how do you feel that pairing is going to come to fruition, particularly after De Zerbi saying that he treats his players like children?
Look, from a footballing perspective, if you take away all the controversy that surrounds Greenwood, it's one that'll excite him because he's working with an exciting manager who wants to work with him quite clearly and knows he's got an exciting footballer. When it comes to the backlash, that's going to follow Greenwood pretty much everywhere he goes right now. And he knows that's why he's not coming back to Manchester United. And there's more reasons why he's not coming back to United. But look, it could be an exciting move. He'll score plenty of goals, get them into Europe. But the exciting thing for us is the sell-on fee. As Brian mentioned, 50%. But United have the option of buying a higher percentage at a later date, which is even better. So it could go even more than that. So we could be talking more profit on Mason Greenwood. That's what excites me. I don't really care too much what he does on the pitch. I wish him all the best that he's left United. Now I'm happy he's gone, that we can finally brush that under the carpet, because that was a dark chapter for the club, having to cover that and having to deal with the horrible comments that came under our content as a result of that. So I'm delighted we can move on and get over it.
Links have surfaced as well during the week of a player who is far more popular, particularly with a man inside in this room. It is common knowledge now at this stage that Fulham have had a £17 million offer for Scott McTominay rejected at the start of this window. Given that we have a former Manchester United midfielder in Andreas Pereira leading the midfield and rejuvenating his career there, Fulham seem absolutely intent on luring Scott McTominay to London. Now, Brian, as the foremost leader of the Scott McTominay fan club, how do these reports set home with you today?
I can only assume they're vicious lies by a media intent on bringing the club down on a day when we're doing great business. I'm outraged, offended, insulted, and I'm willing to have a fisticuffs fight with any of these horrible journalists that are putting this disgusting narrative out there. On a serious note, 17 million, really? That's a pathetic offer. Scott McTominay, I know, look, he's not the most gifted midfielder in the world. He never will be. But he does a job, puts in his shift, and he's at a level where he can come in and cover. And I've said it numerous times, my vision for his role at the club going forward, if he was happy to do that, would be coming in on a rotation basis, injury cover basis. I won't say a bit part player, but a player that can come in and do a job when you need him. But a player at Man United who's able to do that job, surely he's worth more than 17 million at his age, with his level of talent. He's still a decent midfielder. He'll sit into a Fulham midfield and he'll be absolutely brilliant for them. But you're not going to shift him for 17 million. I know historically we're very, very poor at selling players, but not a hope. Like, Jesus Christ, he's not going to leave for 17 million. He's too good a player to be sold for that money. I can only assume that he's not happy with doing what I've suggested he could do as his role going forward. Maybe he does want week in, week out first team football. And if he does, I can't begrudge him that, because he does deserve to be playing every week. He's a good footballer. He's a great lad around the squad. Good personality, good ethos, good attitude. But if we're going to sell him, we need to get paid properly for him and not accept a ridiculous figure like that. And Fulham have loads of money. It's a rich part of London, so dig into your pockets and cough up.
It's not like we're talking about a guy that's 32, 33 years of age. He is realistically now in his prime. And regardless of what he's capable or not capable of doing, he's a full international for Scotland, playing regularly for Manchester United. He's played in regular European competition, and surely he's worth anywhere between 30 to 40 million pounds. And if something like that came knocking on Manchester United's door, given the necessity to be able to benefit the squad, and if you have an individual that wants to play on a week in, week out basis, like you said, I don't think any United supporter will begrudge him a move to get that, because he will be a regular feature for Fulham. Another player that is going to emphasise a lot of talking points over the next coming days is someone that you've been covering for several months, Dale, in Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Obviously, Aaron came to the club in 2019 under Solskjaer. He's always been Mr. Dependable regarding his one-on-one capacity and his ability to be able to defend in those situations. But when it comes to a systematic style of play that Erik ten Hag is looking at facilitating, he is somewhat limited in what he's able to achieve in an attacking perspective. London just appears to be the fourth most desire of the player. And with West Ham linked during the week, you're front and centre with that and you're on top of that. What can you tell us about his future during the summer?
So there's been a few links throughout the summer. There's been notable interest from Turkey in that, but I think it's been very clear for months that Wan-Bissaka has been pushing for a return to London, a London Premier League club, and he would have opened the door to a return to Crystal Palace, but they're not a club that are interested in signing him at the moment, whereas West Ham showed interest last summer under David Moyes, and even though they changed management and there was a bit of a shake-up at board level in the past few months, they remain interested in Wan-Bissaka. Talks are taking place. And Manchester United are looking for between 15 to 20 million for Wan-Bissaka, who has 12 months left on his contract. West Ham currently are sniffing around 10 million, so probably meet somewhere in the middle, because this is a player United realised that it's now is time to cash in on. They've already extended his contract by a further 12 months, so they haven't got that option anymore. And this is a player as well at 26. We can all safely say in this panel that with a fully fit defence, he's not starting. And if you can recoup at this rate, I know you're taking a hit because you spent 50 million on him. And it was an example of bad recruitment, really. But if you can get 15 million for him now, I reckon you can get a backup option for Dalot, who showed last season that he warrants a chance as the right back again. For 15 million, go to the Championship and get a young backup option with potential. There's no real risk in that. You're not going back out and making the same mistake by throwing 50 million on a fullback that can't bomb forward. You're strengthening your squad and you're getting in young potential. You're keeping the squad hungry. So Wan-Bissaka, like I said earlier on, Shaun, is one to watch to West Ham this summer.
There's something I want to touch on both of you guys with now. An individual and a player that we have spent many, many months deliberating over, and is Jadon Sancho. I don't want to spend too long on it, but I feel we have to merit it, because with the players returning to training and multiple reports of promising conversations that were held between Erik ten Hag and Jadon Sancho, an agreement has been met and a line has been drawn underneath that. Is this all a front? Is this just trying to leverage the highest amount of money that we can receive in a transfer to get him out of the club? Or is there a genuine ambition with Erik ten Hag in the club to see if Jadon Sancho can work in going forward?
Adamant and hopeful that this is all a smokescreen in an attempt to raise the transfer value, because clubs that know the fact that they're not talking to each other and he's not wanted by Ten Hag can take advantage of it, of course, when they come making a bid, because our hands are behind our back somewhat, so we have to get rid of him out of the squad. How do we get the most money for him? Easy. He said sorry, or he didn't say sorry, but they've drawn a line in the sand. Everyone's happy. Ten Hag puts on a little comment. Doesn't call him a worldly, but doesn't say he's a great player or a brilliant player. Just said we need good players and he's a good player. So he's not kissing his arse by any means. Just puts out enough there just to quell that idea that you can get him for a snip. I still expect him to leave this summer. And if he doesn't, I'll have a bad time, because I've said some horrible things about Jadon Sancho in the last 12 months. And it'll come back to bite me in the arse if he's back playing week in and week out again. So, yeah, I think it's a smokescreen.
I don't quite think it's a smokescreen. I think that there's a lot of factors this summer that we had to wait for with Ten Hag. And you could say he got his way, he got his new contract, he kept his job. And I think there's a lot of people that came into Manchester United that would have a much higher opinion of Jadon Sancho than any of us. Dan Ashworth being one of them, possibly. and other people with key influence at the club. And this is just my view. It's not anything I've been told or anything like that. I have maybe a view that you're right in saying that it's to up his value, but I don't think that's short term. I don't think Jadon Sancho will attract an offer this summer that will lead United to selling him. I don't think that there's enough clubs willing to put their money where their mouth is, as we've seen was the case with Borussia Dortmund. And it might be a case where the likes of Ashford, the club, have gone to Ten Hag and said, look, we've given you some factors, our way of giving you a new contract. You need to work with us now, and you need to build a bridge with Jadon Sancho, work with him, try get the best out of him throughout the season, make use of him, and sell him next summer if we can get the fee in. Because right now his value is at a very, very low stage. I think, look, what you're saying is, I wish that was the case. I wish it was just a front. But I think, in a sense, a realistic sense, I don't think anyone really is going to put in that offer that's going to sign him. It'll be a loan offer. And again, he's one of the highest paid players at the club. And that's just baffling, really.
I can see both sides, and I can see the elements behind it. If United were to look for a quick sale, then you're going to get pennies, and you're really losing out on a massive markup on what you could receive. I suppose from one avenue, they could look at it that maybe a positive pre-season could lead to vested interest from somewhere. Or in the other avenue, as you said, hold him for the season, give him ample game time, allow everybody to see that he can indeed compete in the highest level in the Premier League, and then sell him for profit next summer. Just bite your lip for 12 months.
Just another thing on that with Sancho and the footage that they released last week. I think it's the chiefs at the club will be looking at some of that and seeing how it's hit the other members of the squad. And there was clear footage that Rashford was smiling, happy, and he's part of Sancho's, friendly crew, along with other players in the squad. And if that can boost a bit of morale, if they can see that within the squad, that's not coming from the manager. But that's only an example to them that you're better working in harmony than working in dispute, and not agreeing and not being united. Going into the new season, where we were on about wanting players fit and fully prepared, we also want the dressing room in harmony, because I can't be dealing with some of the crap that the manager has had to deal with over the past 2 years. We talk about the club backing him, but some of the players now, everyone at the club, pull up your socks. Big season ahead, and don't let any of that crap get in the way of what could be a big season for United.
Right, assuming Marcus Rashford surely regains his form this season, he's had an off season, things didn't go well for him, and let's just hypothetically say Rashford's playing well again this season, and then you've got Alejandro Garnacho, the star boy, the superstar, the new hot prospect. Where does Jadon Sancho fit into this team? How does he get his place?
It's one of those dilemmas of a top football team, that you have an abundance of talent across a variety of positions, and it's about really, really setting the stall in training, isn't it? It's about adhering to structure and adhering to guidance in training and really, really applying yourself 110%. And from that particular point, then maybe he gets an opportunity to prove himself in the field.
So based on that training, he's in serious trouble, because he's not exactly known as the best trainer, and his affinity for staying up arguing with kids in America on Call of Duty till all hours of the night aren't going to serve him very well. So I hope that's not the standard they're going to hold him to for him to get back in the side. Otherwise, he'll be spending the whole side on the bench. So it's an interesting one. I just can't see how he fits in. I can't see how all this is turned around. That a little conversation with Ten Hag has changed it enough that he can try and knock one of those out of their place. And obviously, if Rashford and Garnacho are still playing, if Garnacho's still playing as good as he did last season, and Rashford finds form again, I can only see him playing in cups and games where he's covering for injuries. I can't see him breaking into the side, because what we saw from him when he was with us before he spat out the dummy didn't excite me by any means. He hasn't given me any hope that he's good enough or exciting enough or at the level that we require to take us to that next step and get us back into the top again. So it'll be interesting to see this challenge for Ten Hag to try and fit this fella into the side if he does indeed stay for the season, and we try to put him in the shop window.
Another point that has to be taken into consideration is in the time that he's after leaving, Amad Diallo has finally got his first team berth. And obviously, one of the many, many reports that have broke this summer is how he's impressed to the point where he's now going to be considered a more key member of the squad and moving forward, given that he starts on the right. Garnacho has made the right side his own. You've got to put Sancho in third pecking order in that. I will be honest, from everything that we discussed, Brian, I am more on your side of the fence about this. I don't understand how he gets back into the team after what's after happening. But if we are speaking again in 2 to 3 months' time and Jadon Sancho is a regular feature in the Manchester United side, I think it has really exposed another element of Ten Hag's managerial skill set, in that he's very tolerant and that he has the capacity to be able to overcome some sort of adversity that I myself would not be able to overcome. I got into the habit in the last few weeks when I'm speaking with people on this podcast that I ask them a question. Brian, I'm going to ask you first. Given that we now see Ineos are the real deal and that there is a clear strategy to add suitable additions to an already formidable squad that was completely and utterly set asunder with injuries last year, what is an acceptable season for Erik ten Hag?
Good question, because I suppose the obvious thing is last season was a disaster, so expectations based on that would be understandable. But last season, I've said it before, it was an anomaly. It was a freak injury crisis that just never ended. Every week someone went down, someone came back, went down again. I'm still basing Ten Hag on the first season when I was so impressed with how he came in and so impressed with how he instantly brought the club back with a bit of pride in the shirt. And the pragmatist to me wants to say top four and good run in the cup. I reckon that club, I'd probably get battered for this in the end of the season when it all falls flat in our face, but I honest to God reckon this side, with a couple of key clever additions, without an injury crisis, are good enough to challenge at the top of the table. And maybe that's ludicrous, but I honest to God do truly believe this side is good enough. It's good enough with them couple of additions, bring in one or two more, change the dressing room attitude a little bit further towards what we want. Let Ten Hag get his side playing his kind of football, which he didn't get a chance to implement last season. He got absolutely hamstrung at every junction. I reckon we can challenge, and I reckon there's another day at Wembley for that side, with some songs being sung at the end of it in our favour. So, and a good Europa League run. I wouldn't put that out of question either. So, we're doing the treble. We're doing three. It's not that treble, but we're doing a treble.
As long as I've known you, you've had this air of enthusiasm at the pre-season juncture where anything is possible, and I love it. I absolutely love it, and that's what you want. But let's say it doesn't come to fruition. What is an acceptable season, given all the variables we now know?
If you base it on last season, which I suppose we have to, acceptable is getting back into top four, good deep cup runs, possibly adding one cup to it, and a good representation in the Europa League is probably acceptable in inverted commas. But I have this childish thing that always happens in pre-season where I always, no matter how bad the season before has gone, start the season thinking we're winning the league, we're winning the FA Cup, winning the Carabao, winning the Europa. And I always challenge anyone, if you don't believe it's possible, why are you even following football? Because football is all about that stupid, childish, naive, delusional belief that you can win everything all the time. So, look, we'll play Fulham the first game of the season. They'll slap us 2-1. McTominay scores both, and I'm back down to earth again. But for now, we're winning a lot.
How much have you put on United winning the league?
I was just thinking about checking odds today when I saw us signing Yari Mina, whoever we signed according to Dale. But I think we're about 6 or 7 or 8 to 1. So I'll have a little flutter, yeah.
Very good. Dale, what is an acceptable season for you?
Acceptable season for me would be to see United get top four, really. And a good run in the Europa League would be a bonus. I think what we need to see next season is real development on our league form, winning games home and away, and demanding games against lesser opposition, finally grabbing hold of the scruffy games, whereas we didn't do that all last season. And then anything in the cup, I just think is always a bonus. You know, when Ten Hag came in, when any manager comes to United, there's always the question of whether they can bring trophies to Manchester United, and Ten Hag has proven that he can do that. Now we have a structure in place where things are being put together and we can see where we're landing our prime targets. And I just feel that, I know it's only a 1-year contract he's been given, and we can have a debate on whether there's real security in that. but I see this as a real new dawn, and it's a fresh start, and we can really start building. I'm not really going into it thinking that we have to be competing at the top of the table, because realistically, given how we performed and how last season went, that's totally unrealistic. We shouldn't be at the top of the table. That shouldn't happen. That's unprecedented that we are there. But I'm not saying it's impossible, but being realistic, I think top 4 I'd be happy with, and good run in one of the cups, Europa League or FA Cup.
The both of you are more or less mirroring the general consensus that's coming across from all the guests that are on here. I share the idea that a return to the top 4 has to be the barometer. We need to get back into the top 4. But the main thing that I want to see alongside that is I want to see a style of football that is entertaining, that is vindicating the amount of money being spent every fortnight to put bums in seats inside in that stadium. And when you consider individuals like us in Ireland and Scandinavia, as we've touched about with Rosenborg, and the amount of money that is spent on top of just the standard folk buying their season tickets and renewing those, we need to see a style of play, a determination between a group of footballers. And ideally, we need to avoid as many injuries as we possibly can. There's the one last thing that I want to touch on with you guys. And it was obviously following the Rosenborg game and speaking with MUTV afterwards, Erik ten Hag was very, very critical on his team and the performance, saying that that wasn't how Manchester United needed to play. As you said yourself, Dale, and speaking earlier on, it's something that probably could have been ushered nearly every other week last season, but instead we heard about the dynamism in the team and just how everything was positive and moving forward. As we look ahead to Rangers tomorrow in Murrayfield, I don't know how many more of the first team squad are going to be involved in that because we haven't got confirmation on it yet. Regardless of the result, would either of you anticipate a much stronger performance and the players coming out to be able to bat back the media criticism that has come?
I don't think the media criticism warrants any response around, and that just should be just thrown under the carpet, and because it's a pre-season game. But I do think we should expect improvements. Yeah, the players will have more minutes under their belt. McTominay should be back in the frame to feature, after competing at the Europa League. So Brian will be buzzing with that, like a new signing. So yeah, we should be a little bit stronger. And I think, Shaun, to be honest, to answer your question, we should be stronger gradually going into every game this summer. No matter who we're playing against, we should be one step closer to the new season. So I'm looking forward to that one, whether it's 6 senior players involved or not. Good day out, I'm sure. Brian, are you going?
No, I'm holding myself off for the Community Shield. I went to Edinburgh last summer in Murrayfield, and I was hungover for about 3 weeks after it, so never again want to see Scotland for a pre-season friendly. Almost died with scant memories of singing Robbie Williams on karaoke. It was a good trip, but I remember the following day being on an open top bus around Edinburgh, wishing the bus crashed and it just went up in flames. So Scotland and me don't match for pre-seasons. On Erik ten Hag's very aggressive comments after the match, it brought a smile to my face when I saw it, because I was like, I wonder in the summer when they were chatting to Ten Hag about staying on, did they say, I want you to tell the truth after games. Stop pulling the wool over lads' eyes. Stop saying we were dynamic and exciting, and just be straight out and say they were a bag of shite and they were terrible and need to see better than this. I think it was probably the first time we saw him just straight out hammer the side and say, this isn't good enough, we need to be better. Is he setting out the stall early that standards have to be met, and is he playing the game with the media? I don't know. Look, we're reading too much into it. I'm probably a conspiracy theorist behind it all, but it brought a very wry smile for me, thinking I got flights home from England at stupid o'clock after being on the beer all day, travelling through the night to watch United play away from home and play like something out of a nursing home, and then saw Erik ten Hag say, we were dynamic, we were exciting. Erik, come on now. Not me nor your mother didn't believe that, so it's refreshing to see him batter the side, but he battered a bunch of kids as well, so it's a bit harsh on them, like 19 academy kids. The time he picks to go off the unhinged and go off the cuff and just go, you were absolutely terrible, it's not good enough. Jesus, Erik. This was young lads that most of them will likely never ever play for United. Save it for the likes of Casemiro, who's trudging around, and look, it was brilliant. It was funny. It was brilliant. It raises a lot of questions. I just hope that if we do play utter trash against some side in the league, that he's as free with his tongue and is willing to give it to the first team and gives him a bit of a tongue lashing after a game and doesn't try and lie to us all.
Just to throw another comment in from the post-match stuff, was Johnny Evans was asked about how United seemed to, had no communication on the pitch, and he made the important, I think, comment that a lot of these lads, the group, are not used to playing regularly together. They don't play together regularly, and they're not going to be calling each other's names like they would if they were in the same training camp daily. So I thought the criticism was a bit harsh. Perhaps setting out a few standards for the start of pre-season, that last season maybe he let a few things go. This season nothing will be let go, kind of maybe just setting out those warnings. And it does seem harsh to the young players. But what I just wanted to say, Brian, was, wouldn't we, I know maybe not if it was young players, but on a podcast we probably argued that it had some players come out, first team players, and said that they didn't like what the manager said after a match, i.e. Jadon Sancho. I know it was a competitive game, but we kind of say, take it on the chin. You're at Man United, and that's the way it should be. When you're a first team player, isn't this maybe what Ten Hag is teaching to his players, that midway through the campaign with Sancho, he had that big fallout, and it was briefed to quite a few papers last year that Ten Hag felt he couldn't go too hard on the squad because he felt that they weren't able to take it. So is it just an early sign, maybe before everyone comes back, that this season I'm not letting those things kind of flow? I'm hitting it on the head.
To be fair, in his position at a club like Man United, he should be the godfather of the team. He should be able to speak freely, and he should have the respect that he can say what he wants. What he says goes. He is number one. It's my way or the highway. And he should be able to be constructively critical, sorry, triple off my tongue, constructively critical of the team, or even at times a player, maybe not singling someone out, but if a player's stinking in training and stinking at matches and attitude's completely wrong, referring back to Jadon Sancho, again, we've always said it looked like a tactic to try and light a fire under his backside and try and drive him on a bit. Different players need different encouragement. Some need an arm around the shoulder, some need tough love. He should be able to say these things without fear of, oh, no, I don't want to play for him. No, he's after saying we didn't play well and I can't be arsed. That to me strikes the player's personality as one that doesn't fit with the club, because you've got to play at Man United to a level above any other club in England or any other club in the UK or 99% of clubs in Europe. The standard we have and the expectations on you, the media focus, the fan base, it's different gravy to other clubs. You'll get away with that kind of half-assed performance every now and again. You don't get away with it at United. Look at Willy Kambala. Willy Kambala played against Liverpool, absolutely stormed the place, rising the fans, flying into tackles. I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, this guy is absolutely phenomenal. Next game out, had a bit of a stinker, and he got torn to shreds. Like, people very, very quickly forgot against our biggest rival, he was phenomenal. And a week later, as a young lad, and his first foray into the first team, had a bit of a stinker. They didn't cut him any slack. They absolutely lynched him. And he's now disappeared into the mist and off to Villarreal. So the standards you're dealing with in United, they're phenomenally difficult. You don't get too many chances to have stinkers. You can come in with a reputation like Casemiro, but Casemiro didn't get too much time either. When things didn't go well with Casemiro, everyone forgets all the Champions Leagues he's won and what he's done beforehand. You're at Man United, you put your shift in, you give everything you have, and you raise your level to a level where we accept. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that expectation that you need to perform week in, week out, you need to show us that you care, aka Marcus Rashford last season. The fan base turned on him because they literally thought he didn't care. People will accept the fact that your form can go, but it's body language, it's attitude, it's effort. People's biggest gripe with Rashford is that they just thought he didn't give a shit. He didn't care about being at United. You need to keep that up. So if players aren't able to take a bit of criticism from the manager, be it publicly or privately, I question, are they at the right club? Because you need to have a massive pair of cojones and a bit of thick skin to play at United and to perform in front of that crowd every week. So yeah, I'm all for Eric calling them out and giving them a bit of a tongue lashing if they need it and if they're not performing. And if they don't like it, tough. Transfer window comes in January, transfer window comes again in the summer.
We are at a football club where we live by ethos. If you're good enough, you're old enough. Cobby Mano is proving that week in, week out. So after a fairly dreary performance, regardless of whether it was a pre-season friendly or not, maybe it was just a little warning to those lads that it's got to be a little bit better than that, guys. But anyway, a wonderful conversation, a trip down memory lane with two of my old buddies who I started all out with. It was an absolute pleasure to have the both of you with me today, guys. It genuinely was a great chat. Dale, we've already touched upon Stretty News. How can any of the listeners that don't know who you are get in touch with you?
They can get in touch on Twitter at O'Donnell Dale, or of course Stretty News. Find me any social media website really, apart from TikTok.
I'm delighted for the first time, Brian, he said Twitter and not Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter and now X. It's a first. But Brian, how can they get in touch with you?
I was literally thinking the same as he was speaking. I said, I'm so proud of him for growing up a little bit and not referring to it as X, because that's where we're us. If you do want to follow me and you're very sadistic in your people that you follow, you want to see numerous breakfasts, which I'm the authority on, and some ludicrous opinions on Manchester United, which I honestly do to wind people up. Don't take me seriously. It's at Day Trip and Red, and I'd be glad to interact with you. Shaun, again, thank you so much for having me on Theatre of Red. I wish you every success for the future. I hope to be back on this podcast again at some stage, and you're doing a mighty job. Fair play to you. Keep it up.
Oh, thank you very much.
Shaun, thanks a million for having me on as well.
Thank both of you for joining, and thanks for the kind words. Before I go on to my own little ramble, I just want to give a quick shout out to Mr. Mark McGovern and his family. Mark is a contributor to the Theatre of Red, and they're going through a fairly difficult moment. So our thoughts and our love are with you all. If you want to get in touch with myself, you can do so on Twitter at Shaun Connolly 85. And of course, theatre_of_red across every social media platform, including TikTok. But the most important thing today, wherever you're listening, it'll take you no more than a click of a button to hit subscribe. And if you really, really feel lucky, you can leave a review. It'll mean the world to me. It'll help out the Theatre of Red growing week on week and continue to help us to be able to deliver weekly content like this. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the football. And we'll catch you all next week.